the real substance. Money ain't a thing. You ought to know that if you're looking at the latest lynching. We got P. Diddy, I think he's the one that we had Bill Cosby last year. We had Michael Jackson. All right, y'all know how this thing go. Money ain't a thing but a chicken wine. If you ain't got faith, baby, you ain't got nothing. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen with the natural eyes. For by it the elders and ancestors obtained a good report. Through faith we understand the worlds were framed by the word of God, goddess, so that the things which are seen were made from things which are unseen. By faith, Asada Shakur was translated, that she should not see death, and was not found because God translated her. For before her translation, she had this testimony, that she had pleased God. But without faith, it is impossible to please them. For they that come to God, goddess, must believe that they are, and that they are a rewarder of them that diligently seek them. By faith, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, being warned by God of things not yet seen, moved with reverence, and called and prepared the Million-Man March to the saving of his house and the homes of many others, by which he condemned the world of white supremacy and became an heir of righteousness, which is by faith. By faith, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who is in the whirlwind while you're watching these tornadoes, when he was called to go out into a place which he should not himself receive, but yet he knew he had an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, which was a strange country compared to the one of his origins, dwelling with immigrants, natives, and freedmen, many of whom were not heirs with him of that same promise. Yet he looked for a city which has foundations, paved with righteous hands of gold, whose builders and makers are of the heavenly realms. These all live and die in faith, not having received the promise, but having seen them afar off, and are persuaded of them, and embrace them, and confess that they are strangers and pilgrims in the world of white supremacy. For they that say such things declare plainly that they see and seek a righteous world. And truly, if they had been mindful of that world of white supremacy into which they were born and came out, they might have the opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better world, that is a heavenly world, where the gods and goddesses are not ashamed to be called the children of God, for God has prepared for them a city of righteousness. By faith, Nat Turner, when he had come of years, refused to continue to teach and preach the religion of bondage, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ as greater riches than the tokens of praise and the kitchen crumbs from his slave master's table. By faith, he forsook the chains of bondage, not fearing the wrath of his slave master's whip, for he endured as though seeing them who are invisible. Through faith, he and his righteous soldiers swept through the land, and no more than worn-out tools of bondage in their hands sprinkled the blood of the unrighteous, lest they who had destroyed the firstborn of the earth should abduct them again. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea of revolution, bringing the righteous retribution, which the wicked enslavers had one day feared would come. By faith, the wicked, cruel, and despicable walls of slavery eventually came crumbling down, being compassed about by the righteous for more than 400 years. And what shall I say more? For time would fail me to tell you of Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife, and of our brother Malcolm X, also known as El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, whose activist family lived right here in Lansing, Michigan, the 517, from the time he was 2 until he was about 11. when his father was murdered by a suspected white supremacist streetcar driver named William Hart, right up on Detroit Street and East Michigan Avenue, and of how the wicked line of white supremacy came together, as it always does, and labeled his father's murder a suicide, so that Malcolm's mother was disqualified from their paid-into insurance claim money, for which she would have been able to righteously bury her husband, and perhaps have had funds to raise her surviving children, and how Malcolm's mother was left struggling with 10 children for 3 years until she was locked away, being deemed insane by the same system, Malcolm and his siblings being placed in a foster home in Mason, Michigan. Or of how God, in the form of a man by the name of Master Fard Muhammad, would raise up Elijah Muhammad and the mighty nation of Islam, and how this same chain of reactions began raising the lost, and how it brought light to the later imprisoned Malcolm Little, whose white supremacist female teacher had darkened his mind by discouraging him from becoming a lawyer, purposely crushing his deep desire to bring about true justice in the world of white supremacy. Yet the teachings of true Islam would evolve Malcolm Little into Malcolm X, a heavenly lawyer of justice, while also raising up and spotlighting the greatest of all time, I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, Muhammad Ali. And furthermore, how God would consistently use the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, despite his body being poisoned by these devils, so that he would demonstrate God's omnipotence over the poisonous snakes for over 45 years, crying loud and sparing not while making the final call. Or of our talented entertainers, whose great talents were not deserved by this white supremacist world. A prince who would paint the symbol of slavery on his forehead. A Michael Jackson, who would just before his suspected poisoning declare they don't really care about us. Or of our great sister Angie Stone, author of the beautiful song Black Brother, I Love Ya, who had just recently publicly declared that she had been tricked, deceived, and stolen from by these devils when her van was mysteriously run off the road with the 5 people in the vehicle, Angie Stone being the only soul to have died suddenly from that so-called accident. All these through faith, subdued wickedness, wrought righteousness, stopped the mouths of deceitful devils, and obtained some promises. Quench the fire of anti-black hatred. Escape the plots of secret agents. Out of weakness were made strong. Wax valiant in fight. Turn to flight the armies of the aliens. And what of the scholarly women such as Maya Angelou, who by faith declared, and still I rise. And Sherazad Ali, Dr. David Muhammad, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who raised the mentally dead unto life again, and who themselves were plotted against, rebuked and rejected, and yet not accepting deliverance in order that they might receive the illusion of protection, chose to obtain a greater resurrection, and so they happily chose to suffer affliction with the children of God for a season, understanding their life's purpose and its true reason, deciding rather to give birth to a world aligned with God's perfection by giving us insight and clear direction. And others are brought up on trumped-up charges and continually endure trials of cruel mockings year after year. They lynch us, terrorize us, burn crosses on our lawns at night. They drag their bodies on the backs of trucks, fill our families with self-loathing, hopelessness, and sheer fright. The men they imprison so as to allow the white supremacist government to flood our communities with drugs that will cause them themselves to unalive. And they redlined right here in Lansing, our cities, so as to halt community progress, so that we would never, ever thrive. They and we are tempted, spiritually blinded, and scattered asunder. We wandered about in ghettos and projects, being destitute, afflicted, self-deprecating, and down under. And that we would eventually all rise again, would fill these aliens of morality and decency with so much wonder. But these and we all obtain good reports, through faith. Having never received the full promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they, our ancestors, without us, should not be made perfect, but they through us will receive that full promise. The impossible being made possible through and by faith. And so it is, and so it will forever be. The redeemed people of God will live in harmony, justice, and true dignity. Ashe, ashe, ashe. All right. She went on, didn't she? All right.